Welcome to Monmouth in Focus, a program about the services and functions of Monmouth County government. I'm your host, Cynthia Scott, from Monmouth in Focus. And it is that time of year again. Summer's gone, in the blink of an eye. Students are trading in sunblock and beach towels for book bags filled with school supplies as families are gearing up for another school year here in Monmouth County. Today we are joined by Freeholder Deputy Director Patton Preverduo, who's the liaison to the Superintendent of Schools, to talk about going back to school, that dreaded time of year for probably the kids, not so much the parents.
Oh, I'm sure there's some of the parents were relieved that school's starting again, Cynthia.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So obviously we're here to talk about that with you based on your professional educational experience. Tell us a little bit about that first, starting off with your...
Well, I've been an educator for 46 years.
Yeah.
I started off as an English teacher back in '74. And I've held just about every position you can in a school district. Mm-hmm. And the last 10 years, I've been associate director for the Middle States Association, and I've been traveling around, evaluating schools.
Wow, that's a big job.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So back to school, September, such an important time of year for students, teachers, parents, educational professionals. Tell us about basically starting off in a clean slate in September, huh?
Well, that's pretty much it, okay?
Yeah.
Everyone starts off, with a clean slate, a fresh start. It's also a good time to establish strong routines, not just for students, but for teachers as well. It's a time to reflect on the previous year's ability, to celebrate the good things you've done in the past, to review what you've done in the past, and to assess where you're going in the future, both for teachers and students.
So we talk about routines. It's a little hard for the kids to get back into the routine. I tell my kids, I'm like, pretty much next month you're going to be getting back into the routine. What exactly does that mean specifically that parents can work with with their kids and teachers with their students?
Yeah, absolutely. Routines are important. You need bedtime routines, you need reading routines, you need mealtime routines, and all of these are important. It helps control anxiety, it helps foster self-confidence. I encourage parents, especially with young children, to have that bedtime routine. Make a pattern. When you take a bath, put on pajamas, brush your teeth, read to your child, and then make sure they get a good night's sleep. And I mentioned reading. A reading routine is important. I encourage every parent to read to their child at least 20 minutes each day. Again, especially on that elementary level. It's going to help with build language skills. It's going to help with literacy. It's going to build vocabulary skills. Sure. And also it's going to develop creative thinking. Yeah. So that's really important. And I just don't want to focus on reading on the elementary level. The high school kids should be reading as well, and read anything. Books, comics, newspaper, just to keep your mind fresh. Well, and that's important.
It's funny, you mentioned newspaper, and kids are like, what's a newspaper? I mean, but it's
all right, take the newspaper back. Read the
but it's
read
true,
the internet.
though.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. I teach at the college level, and I give them quizzes every week coming from the New York Times, okay, just to get them up on current events. And some of them have never picked up a newspaper before. Yeah. Yeah,
that's society we're living in today,
Yes,
Cynthia.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is important. It's really important, reading and just knowing what's going on throughout the year.
If I could just elaborate on something, we talked about everyone's thoughts on a clean slate. I do want to encourage parents whose children are just starting kindergarten to lessen the anxiety. If they can, bring the kids to school. Let them see what the classroom is going to be like.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to their child about their own experiences if they remember going to kindergarten.
Right,
you want to relay that anxiety. And I used to tell the teachers, please make sure that you smile to those kids on the first couple of days of school.
Yeah, very
because
important.
They need a warm, nurturing, happy face.
They do.
It's going to lessen their anxiety.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And what about diet? How important is that?
Eating healthy is paramount. Eating healthy and exercise, we know, are paramount. Staying active is a byproduct of eating healthy. Each school in the state and nationally are following federal and state guidelines now regarding the meals. So we're not too concerned with that any longer. But it's important to stay active. Kids are involved in extra and co-curricular activities after school. They have their academics. They participate in curricular activities after school. So eating right and getting a good night's sleep is important.
It really is. It's so important, especially once you get to that high school level when kids are going to bed a little bit later and they're coming home and they have sports after school. They're not getting home till 6. They're eating dinner and then they start their homework at maybe 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And they're doing homework till midnight sometimes. It's tough.
One thing I did find as you're talking about this is that the kids that participated in co and extracurricular activities were more disciplined and developed more of a routine because they know they have a finite amount of time.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's interesting. Another important topic when it comes to school, especially with the younger kids, is bullying. You know, I'm sure you've dealt with it as an educator. And so what are some of the how are some of the ways that we can prevent it or even address it?
Well, we all know that bullying is aggressive behavior, both physical and emotional. And I need to state unequivocally that administrators and teachers are well schooled on how to handle bullying. They've gone through extensive professional development in dealing with this issue. Now, could they cover every issue? No, but they're aware and they know how to address it. And that professional development is reinforced every year. But parents also need to be observant, and they need to be vigilant as well, and communicate with their child.
Sure.
You know, when we talked, what I didn't talk about earlier was, we talked about routines. Family mealtime is very, very important. You know, it gives parents an opportunity to discuss with their students about the school day.
Right.
Okay. And what's the best part of your school day? What did you learn today? I wouldn't be so focused on what grades did you get as to what was learned, because I'm a true believer. Once you learn something, grades will follow. So at that mealtime, when you're discussing, at that mealtime routine, when you're discussing the school day, it's a good time to address how are you getting along with your peers and things of that nature.
Right.
And again, they need to be vigilant. They need to monitor the children's social media pages.
Yeah. Oh.
And if it's something that is not right, they should absolutely notify the authorities and the school administrators. I would not let unwarranted situations go unaddressed.
Very important for the parents to be involved with the school. Go to back to school nights. Get involved. Know what your kids are doing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Anything else you'd like to add, Freeholder, before we conclude?
Yeah, one of the things we haven't discussed, immunizations. Okay, please make sure your child gets proper immunizations. We don't want a repeat of last year with that whole measles outbreak. That's important. And just a note for the high school students, we pretty much focused, I guess, on our elementary level. You need to develop routines as well, high school students. You know what courses you have for next year. Get the reading, get the syllabus of the course you have, and start reading and just start preparing for the school year. I guarantee you your school year will be less stressful if you're prepared going into it. And as you mentioned, it's important for the parents to be involved. It's the education community is a community of all stakeholders, and everybody needs to be involved and on the same page.
That's great advice. All right, Freeholder, thank you so much for joining us today. I wish all the best of luck in the upcoming school year. Parents, teachers, students, school officials, all involved. That is all the time we have for this segment of Monmouth in Focus. And of course, for more information, please visit www.visitmonmouth.com. I'm Cynthia Scott.